What's up, everybody? It's the Unknown Man here today, and today we'll be discussing the brief history of mods, in particular armor mods. So let's get into it and start at the beginning of Destiny 2. How armor was introduced. It was quite a simple system with 3 armor types, 1 proficient in mobility, 1 in recovery, and 1 in resilience. Mods were built around abilities recharging faster based on type, enhancing your mobility, resilience, or recovery, and they could enhance your performance of your weapons based on the slot position. My favorite mods during that time were the counterbalance mods because they allow your weapons with wild recoils to be stabilized. Take for example a Lincoln Green, a pulse rifle with a recoil so bad Bungie had to replace it with another weapon with better stats. The counterbalance armor mods stacked together allowed a terrible Lincoln Green to become a laser. Even exotics benefited with these mods, creating manageable recoils even for them too. This armor mod system was deprecated in the Forsaken expansion, but kept certain mods like adding mobility, resilience, or recovery to your armor. The armor kept its 3 flavored types, but added random perks, some from the old mods and others that were brand new to the game. In Forsaken, they also added mods for guns that were for legendaries, but not for exotics. The counterbalance mod that was previously on the armor was moved to the gun slot, but it wasn't as strong as when a hunter wore 3 of these counterbalance mods. Looking back to the perks on the post-Forsaken armor pieces, these gave players more options to customize their experience and playing the way they wanted. If you wanted your hand cannon to have a quicker response in its overall performance, there were armor perks for that, and that for any other weapon in the game. One of my favorite perks were the weapon Scavenger perks that allowed you to retrieve more ammo based on how many you had equipped for a particular weapon. The Scavenger perks appeared on 2 pieces of armor, which were the gauntlets and the leg armors. In PvP, it allowed 1 special ammo break that would normally drop 1 ammo to drop 2 or 3 shots of ammo depending on if you had 1 or 2 Scavenger perks, respectively on. Close to the end of the Forsaken expansion, Bungie started talking about changes done to the armor system.
It seems like there are some themes to the types of impact that different types of gear have on your build, right?
Yeah.
Like it looks like the boots here really indicate what sort of ammo you're acquiring.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things we do is we make sure that basically for the sockets that are armor piece specific, like these are the leg armor mods, there are certain mechanics that are only found in there. So all of the Scavenger mods are down here as well. But we've just sort of doubled down on making it so that they have a very clear, like, hey, these are boot mods, these are chest mods, etc. The one thing that is nice though is that because these 2 slots are they're both just leg armor slots, you can have a Scavenger mod and a Scavenger mod where you couldn't have that before, right? You couldn't have 2 Scavenger mods, you couldn't have 2 unflinching mods, right? Like if I wanted to, I could have unflinching sniper rifle and unflinching hand cannon if I wanted to, right? And so like you have a little bit more flexibility in how you like what kinds of mechanics you have access to at any given time.
To me, this caused some anxiety because perks were becoming mods again, and the Scavenger mods were being put only on the leg armor. Think of that. Because the Scavenger mods were only going to be put only on 1 piece of armor, it was going to be inferior to the Forsaken armor sets. With the release of Shadowkeep and the Season of Undying, it brought in the Armor 2.0 system that allowed you to customize your armor with perks of your own choosing, with each mod having a cost. Back to the Scavenger mods, it was a perfect fit for the leg armors because it didn't have too many unique mods competing with the Scavenger mods. What was great about the Scavenger mods that they had a cheap enough cost, with 1 being the lowest and 3 being the highest. You could put 2 of them on your leg armor and actually still had enough space to put on other useful mods. My initial fears with the Scavenger mods were crushed and grounded into dust. Now, what made me feel that way was that in PvP, 1 Scavenger mod for a special ammo actually produced 3 ammo, while 2 actually produced 5 ammo. Now, this actually became a big problem in PvP, because it allowed people to use special weapons like shotguns as their primary weapon. This caused an adverse effect in the PvP economy that Bungie had to step in and change how scavengers worked in the next season. In the following season, Season of the Dawn, Scavenger mods had their effects reduced back to what they were back in Forsaken, with 2 or 3 shots given while keeping the cost of the mods the same. This was a needed nerf for PvP, but it didn't slow down players who knew what they were doing. Weapon scavengers sat comfortably in the leg armors, while every other armor piece slots were balanced without too many problems. After some time, the release of Beyond Light came out and Bungie again came in and started shaking things up. One of their major moves was removing what I could count 17 mods off the class item that could create more competition for mods on other armor pieces. 3 of those mods went to the head armor, competing with the Finder and Targeter mods. 6 of them went with the legs, competing with the Scavenger mods, while 8 of them that gave you super energy on kills were depreciated into the Shadow Realm. The class item was left barren, with only a few unique mods only used for niche builds. The only mods that are now significant on the class item are temporary seasonal mods from the seasonal artifact that are normally strong, but that are very expensive for mods. While the class item gained its dependence on the seasonal artifact, the leg armor had players, including myself, trying to figure out what mods were important to them to make their armor builds continue to work for them. Some players stayed with the double scavengers, while others, including myself, went with 1 scavenger and 1 mod previously on the class item. With these quote-unquote competitive decisions being solidified, Bungie seemed content with their decision, and there was peace in the land once again. Or so we thought. Boom, boom, boom. So prior to the release of the current season, Season of the Lost, Bungie stated in their blog that, I quote, multiple copies of Scavenger mods of the same type no longer stack. And that was all that was said about Scavenger mods at the time. So as a 1 scavenger player, it wouldn't affect me, unlike the double scavenger players. The reasoning behind doing it was to hinder the oppressive nature of special weapons in PvP by them having less ammo to pick up. With the release of the Season of the Lost, the patch notes used the same language as the blog 12 days prior and went into explaining primary weapons losing their scavenger mods due to the fact that they are now using infinite ammo. Now, the thing that was puzzling to me was that inside the game, it was a totally different story. What stood out to me was that the scavenger mod's cost went up with no mention of it. Now, this change ruined some of my and other players' builds, making the cost of scavenger mods over budget the mod slots. My problem with the scavenger mod situation wasn't just because they didn't say anything in the patch notes about the change, but the overall cost of mods. So using scavenger mods as my example, as I created a table for visualization to make it easier to understand when talking about the different seasons and their difference in cost and the amount you would get on pickup. I'm using special weapons in this table because they were the ones that benefited most for scavenger mods. Shotguns and fusions shared the same cost throughout the seasons, while snipers and grenade launchers did the same. Having this table shows that shotguns and fusions cost went up double without anything sprinkled in to incentivize its cost increase. Other mods' cost stayed the same, making armor like my Lion Rampant's mod slots unusable until I get my limit from 10 or below. Funny thing was, everything fitted perfectly to 10 before the change, but trying to figure out why Bungie doubled down on these scavenger mods still makes no sense to me. When looking at these mods as a whole, I can say one thing when applied to all aspects of life, that with choice, there's always a cost. With Bungie, this is a concept they seem to understand but don't know how to fully apply it. Let's take this helmet for example, with a discipline and taking charge mod with the cost of 3 each, with the addition of the bow targeting mod for the cost of 4, hitting the mod cost cap of 10. Now, as an occasional late Monarch user, this setup works well with the bow by helping it with its performance and accuracy. Late Monarch being one of those few exotics that just can't make any orbs, keeping it away from its own maximum potential. Bungie announced that they were creating a helmet mod that allowed us to create orbs of power through different means, meaning that you would be able to create orbs next season even with the Late Monarch. Looking at this helmet, I can already tell you I have the space, but I can't afford the cost, unless it costs 0 for that new mod. With the competition of making orbs versus the effectiveness of my weapons, I will always choose my weapon when it comes to PvP. I have discussed solutions for mod costs with a couple of friends who also play Destiny, which each with their own opinion of the subject matter. I had one friend wanting to have all mods have a zero cost, where it actually has the game concentrating on the aspect of being fun. And my other friend didn't really want too many changes to keep the build crafting of mod combinations very interesting. While discussing with my two friends, I suggested lowering the cost of the mods reasonably so that the choices felt more responsive to the player. At the end of the discussion, we all agreed that the cost of mods needed a reduction. Before I talk about the changes I would like to see, these are the things Bungie would have to do before they could be implemented. The first would be to stop raising the cost of mods based on their usage rates or their popularity without giving it more in exchange for its increased cost. An example where they did this correctly was when targeting mods costs were increased by 1, when their enhanced versions were depreciated, but gave their better perks to the inferior versions. The second thing they would have to do is stop raising the cost of older mods to put up newer mods that haven't even earned their spot. As the example used earlier with the Scavenger mods, with their cost increased, came alongside weapon holster mods in the same slot. These holster mods were the new hotness that fell flat on its face because their practical use isn't even all that in practice. And that is one of those things I can say I can see a rework of these mods sometime later in the future. Now let's look into my proposed possible solution for these mods. My first point is the cost of mods needs to go down. The cost of certain mods can take over a piece of armor, leaving options at a bare minimum. This thought process actually stems from how abilities were reworked recently, and the need for abilities to be above tier 3 for them to actually operate properly. Ability mods are a must on armor if you are in need of the bare minimum for stats that are lagging behind. My second point is that mods need to have a cost of 4 or less. No mod should cost over 4 unless they are a decent seasonal mod or mods with incredible functionality. But even with the seasonal mods, they've had some extravagant costs, like the mod Breach and Clear, which had a cost of 9 out of 10. It was one of the best seasonal mods, in my opinion, but it had a high cost but didn't even function in PvP. These high-end mods shouldn't cost at a maximum of 5 to keep it competitive with other options and not monopolize the armor slot. My third point is mods with similar costs should cost the same. I know not every gun is created equal, but making similar mods equal or less than their current cost would allow mods to be exchanged easier. The current situation is an all or nothing situation when trying to invest in certain weapons, like hand cannons, for a good reason. Bringing down hand cannon mods or mods similar to the hand cannons down by 1 would help make choice options when building out loadouts much easier. My fourth and final point is the class item needs more love. The class item, being a shell of its former self, needs meaningful mods like the new orb creating mods to help keep every armor mod in a competitive position. The class item being so dependent on the seasonal artifact hasn't allowed it too much growth. With my proposed system, the utility heavy class item would be able to work with my new system that I hypothesized. Again, with choice, there's always a cost, and I want a choice that is worth the cost. Otherwise, I will always be cheated. Hopefully, I was able to give you something to think about, and somehow this actually hit some Bungie eyes. So once again, thank you for watching. I have been your host, The Unknown Man, Black Man out. Peace!